Hello again, crew. It's good to be back in port. I'm ashore for a couple of months working on my expedition vessels and getting them ready for crew training over summer and autumn. There's a bunch of subjects that I wanted to dive into with you today, so prepare to have your mind blown. I'd imagine most have tuned in to hear about the expedition, so I'm going to lead with that. Since posting my documentary, I've received hundreds of comments and emails asking questions about the expeditions to the outer lands. For the safety of my crew, I won't be disclosing certain information like our leaving date or which outer landmass we'll be travelling to. I don't want to be tracked or followed. Both expedition vessels are fully kitted out with modern tech like radar, chart plotters and automatic identification systems, but no GPS type technology will be used during this first voyage. Our ancestors have been sailing and navigating the oceans for thousands of years using the celestials, and all of this modern tech has only been around since the 1970s. We did fine without it, and I just don't trust their deceptive GPS. Celestial navigation is the only way to navigate from world to world. The Celestials' main purpose and reason for their creation is so that we can navigate our worlds. Unlike GPS, it doesn't lie, deceive you, or break down. Celestial navigation relies on specific mathematical equations to determine our position using celestial bodies like the Sun, Moon and stars. These equations are essential for converting sextant readings into lines of position on a nautical chart. We take multiple readings and apply these calculations to accurately determine our location on this world. Plus, celestial navigation is one of my favourite undeniable proofs that the oceans are flat. Using a sextant, celestial navigation is impossible on a curved surface or a globe, and that's a scientific and navigational fact. Every star in this flat celestial plane has a position relative to our flat world where it will be at 90 degrees. This is called the geographical position, or the GP, of that star relative to our flat plane. When the observer is at the geographical position of the star, it appears 90 degrees above their head. Celestial navigation works by using a sextant to measure the angle of that known star and using its relative geographical position to know where you are. And like I've already said, measuring an angle to a celestial body only works if we're on a flat ocean or plane. Now, if one observer measures 30 degrees to a star and another observer measures 30 degrees to that same star, we can conclude that they are both on what's called a circle of equal altitude. Everything on that circle of equal altitude is exactly that, equal altitude. You know, it's sea level, not sea curve. No matter where you are on that circle, everything on that circle, between that circle, and in the area of that circle is absolutely fucking flat. And anyone that refuses to accept this absolute reality and scientific and navigational fact is either a non-player character, which I'll soon undeniably prove do exist, or you've gone full retard, which makes your opinions irrelevant. By doing this once with a sextant, you know that you are somewhere on that circle of equal altitude. To triangulate your actual position, we have to repeat these steps with other stars. Your position is where all of these areas of equal altitude meet. This is how celestial navigation works and has always worked on our flat, level plane. Not only is our world observably and obviously flat, it's measurably flat. Using just one area of equal altitude proves that the large area that we're navigating is absolutely flat, but by doing this multiple times to create multiple areas of equal altitude, we can literally measure our entire world as flat. It's why using the Celestials is a dead art form of navigation nowadays, and why tuition on the subject is purposely overcomplicated, boring and surrounded in pseudoscience. They don't want you using this truthful and accurate way of navigation and pinpointing our position. Using a sextant, taking a few bearings and referencing them to a nautical almanac is very simple, and being competent in this method of navigation is a must for all of my crew and anyone else that's planning an expedition of their own. You won't get to the outer lands or out of this world without it. You've got to go old school like the captain. If you're looking into buying a sextant, it's tempting to buy one of the old brass antique type. They're stunning works of art and gives a sneak peek of the intelligence of our ancestors, but I'd advise against buying one of these, especially when they're priced so cheaply. The chances are they're non-functioning. These old sextants are often knocked around, put on display, and if the arcs are distorted, they won't be accurate anymore. These are precisely calibrated time instruments. They've got to be looked after. New good quality sextants are expensive, especially the modern German brands. I use a Davies 25, but you can get a good quality second-hand one for about 300 sterling upwards. Just make sure it has all of its UV sun filters. These are removable, easy to lose and hard to replace. When we use the sun to take a bearing, we're looking directly at the sun, whilst also looking at the sea level on a split mirror, and we can drop the sun down to sea level. These eye lenses filter the sun's rays. The brighter the sun, the darker the filter you use. Without them, over time you'll burn out the retina behind your eye, hence why a lot of old sailors used to wear eye patches. When sailors and pirates are pictured in movies, there's always a few that wear an eye patch. Back in the day, these were the navigators. On overcast, gloomy days and nights, it's sometimes hard to even see or locate the sun, especially in thick fog, clouds and storms, which can be disastrous for the vessel and crew when navigating with a sextant. So I replace the first eye filter lens with a slice of calcite sunstone, which is a polarising crystal. When we look through this crystal at an overcast sky, it will show and detect the location of the sun and even bright stars on an overcast night. Navigational tools like this we use with a wee piece of calcite in the middle. If you look at my profile picture, it's the same thing. I've had a few comments saying this is witchcraft, that I'm casting spells on y'all. Some type of voodoo.
Fucking voodoo magic, man.
But unfortunately the reality is much more boring. It's just the Norse compass. The raven in the centre representing Odin. Norseman, Northman. The legend has it the magnetic north is the Bifrost to the other realms, but that's a subject for another time. When it comes to navigating our known world, it's not as simple as using and following a compass. We can't actually navigate a modern map with a compass without accounting for declination, which is the angle difference between geographical north, which is the imaginary north that the longitude lines on a map point to, and we've got magnetic north, the direction that your compass points to, actual north. As the mainstream explanation says, longitude and latitude lines are imaginary lines used to locate places on Earth. The imaginary latitude lines run horizontally and measure how far north or south a location is from the equator. The equator is an imaginary line that divides the Earth into northern and southern hemispheres located at 0 degrees latitude, while imaginary longitude lines run vertically and measure how far east or west a location is from the prime meridian. So they're imaginary lines and GPS technology made to navigate their distorted and inaccurate maps that everyone's been indoctrinated into believing don't actually point to real north. Maps line up with the mainstreamly admitted imaginary north, south, east and west, and not the actual north, magnetic north. Most topographic maps include a diagram, a key that shows this recalculation, this declination between geographic north and magnetic north. It's just more of a sick joke of the cool that geographic north is referred to as true north. So the fake imaginary north is called true north. And that's what we get nowadays in this cult run, upside down clown world that we all live in. I explained towards the end part of my documentary why I think this landmass that I refer to as Vista 3 is a separate world to ours, with its own sun and moon, its own magnetic north, its own liquid oceans, its own star constellations, its own old world infrastructure that was built prior to the 1200s, and probably its own creatures, critters, and maybe its own human population. We know that our sun and moon spiral in and out around our magnetic north. My own logical theory is that this world and landmass next to us has at least one sun and moon. As we travel south through this space in between these two worlds, floating through space in my spaceships, we will leave our world's magnetic field, As we close nearer to the next world's magnetic field, my compasses will stop spinning wildly and settle pointing to the next world's magnetic north. I'm also hoping to see the edge of a second star constellation different to ours. Due to the time of year that we'll be travelling to one of these outer lands with the sun rotating Capricorn, I'm expecting to be in a position where I should be able to see both worlds, moons and suns at once. And I think this explains reports from these southern areas of people witnessing two suns in the sky. Usually the second being a black sun with a halo of light around it, almost like an eclipse. The sun and moon seem to be a tilted dome disc type shape, right? And only lit up on their front side facing our world. We never see the dark side of the moon, right? Or the backside of the sun. I think the backside of the sun and moon are dark. They're unlit. As we sail through this in-between part, I'm expecting to be able to look up and see our world's sun shining, whilst also being able to see the next world's sun in the distance. We'll be seeing their sun's backside, so we'll be seeing a black sun with a halo of light around it, and maybe even see two moons during the same time. At the end of the day, there's only one way to find out, and that's to go and have a ganders for ourselves. As explained previously, the moon is not a solid object that Freemasons can land on. It's a focused electromagnetic plasma phenomenon. Electromagnetic energy comes from below the Earth at the magnetic north. The moon is a reversed image of our flat world's floor plan, a mirrored bird's eye view, an impossible coincidence. And this lunar map uses the same navigational key as the Obono Monte 1587 map. Their keys are the same. The celestials. When it comes to the lunar image, I'm 99% convinced that this is a reverse image of the world and immediate lands around us. But is it a reflection in real time, or is it an imprinted image from another time that's passed? Kinda like a photograph rather than a reflection. I've spent a lot of time trying to debunk the lunar image with zero success. And don't get me wrong, I'm not referring to Vibes of the Cosmos' model and claims. That's all easy to debunk as it's 90% fantasy nonsense with zero evidence or logic to back it up. But I mean, I can't debunk the image that we can all see when we look up at the moon. That's an impossible coincidence. So instead of trying to debunk the lunar image and disprove it, I changed my mindset. Why don't I try to actually prove it instead? I think I am the only one that could prove or disprove the moon map, and I'll show you how I'll do it. For example, using Vibes' political map, let's zoom into what I call Vista Freed's coastline. Let's take this very distinctive shape area here, this peninsula. Just another example of how distorted and inaccurate Vibes' map is. He labels this as Madagascar, but this is Madagascar's actual location. Vibes has just drawn its shape wrong on his computer. This peninsula is about 3,000 nautical miles south of Madagascar. If I sail to this particular area, and let's say I find land in this area, and I send my mapping and surveillance drone overhead, and it maps this entire area and comes back confirming this peninsula land shape, or something close to it, then that could be used as great evidence that the lunar image is a close representation of the world around us. But then again, this could also be the proof that debunks the lunar image. If I travel to this location and find nothing, and even carry on for another 1,000 plus nautical miles and still nothing, then we'll know it's not accurate or real. When navigating our flat world, north is pointing to the magnetic north in all directions. South is pointing outwards in all directions parallel to north. West is left when facing north. And east is right when facing north. So if we sail east from Madagascar, we hit Australia on our flat world. And the same goes on the globe. East from Madagascar takes you to Australia. If we sail south from Madagascar on the globe model, we hit Antarctica. If we sail south from Madagascar on the flat model, we hit Vista Free. It's physically impossible to sail south from Madagascar and hit Antarctica over here. Before we move on from the lunar image, there's a couple more things I'd like to mention. I'll be navigating out of this world with my crew using the celestials, the Obono Monte chart, the Petteradura Terran air map, And lastly, my own creation of a world map and chart that I've been making with the combined help of 2 professional cartographers. 2 very different cartographers, one being more art-based, a fantastic artist and illustrator. We've been working together to create a navigable world chart that can be used for marine and aircraft navigation. It's not going to be another boring rectangular modern map or some computer-generated abomination like this lot's, built on a foundation of fantasy. Like the Abono Monte, I'll be infusing accurate cartography alongside art. Not just a map or a pretty picture, a functioning timepiece of this world, its natural laws and how it works. A rotatable circular chart as intended for the Monte map, taking inspiration from other timepieces like the Horloge, an astronomical clock in Prague. This masterpiece is the oldest functional astronomical clock in our known world, with a supposed installation date of 1410. This clock's been ticking for 616 years. I'm incorporating a similar method of layering information onto my map. A transparent celestial key and star chart that fits on top of the map and rotates independently to the map itself. My chart will be the first to be created in this way. Now, the reason why Vibes' model can't be used to navigate is because he didn't alter the lunar image due to its dome shape. The moon's not a flat image, it's domed, right? Just like when you go to a carnival, the Hall of Mirrors. Different shaped mirrors distorts its reflection. Everyone's looked into a dome mirror. It clearly distorts its reflection in a very particular way. And Vibes didn't correct this distortion. It's unusable as a navigational chart. My second major issue with Vibes' lunar map is his imaginary ice walls. This guy's not just added 1 ice wall, not 2 ice walls, he's added 3 ice walls. Where's my screen pillar? I feel better now. Right, let's look at the lunar image. If this is a reflection like Vibes and myself think it is, then where is the ice wall or ice walls in this image? Vibes' entire research is set on the foundations of the moon image. So where is he getting all these ice walls from? Because it's not from the image itself. I'll tell you where he's getting them from. He's pulling them out of his fucking arse is what he's doing. There's no evidence whatsoever that these or any other ice walls that wrap around our world exist. The ice walls are just mind games to keep you from trying to leave. When it comes to expeditions, y'all don't need me. But what we do need is expeditions heading out in all directions. Nothing's stopping y'all from putting in planning and preparations into creating your own expeditions. So what I've done is I've built a platform that you can do it on. I've received thousands of crew applications over the past few months. There's probably thousands more of you out there that would love to become an explorer, a sailor, a pioneer and see the truth with your own eyes. I'm going to go through some of the basics on what's needed to set up a crew, vessels and expedition. And I'm going to give you the platform to do it on. I'm going to send invites to the crew platform to all skilled applicants I've received. People that own vessels, experienced sailors, mechanics, medics and all that kind of stuff. And I'll add a couple of hundred of the most serious unskilled applicants to the platform too. I'm hoping crews will naturally form, but if not, I'll start allocating you into crews myself. This is you setting up your own expeditions with my guidance. So when it comes to crew restrictions, the only one is adults only. Mature-minded 18s and upwards. I've been planning these expeditions for about 3 years, so I'm quite prepared skillfully, mentally, physically and kit-wise when it comes to the vessels and equipment. I've had time to think deeply and seriously about everything needed to pull this off successfully, including every logical and realistic scenario. My crew's safety is my utmost importance, and I'm morally and legally responsible for the safety of them all. Which puts me in a good position to advise and teach other future expeditions and crews. I've had a few crews approach me over the past few months, groups of friends that are planning on an expedition and basically just want me to advise in the planning of theirs. I'm happy to advise any genuine crews that's got the balls to do this. Figuratively speaking, that is, as I know there is women that want to explore the outer lands as well. I'm currently concentrating on the first of the first year's expeditions, but the second voyage would depart 2 months after the return of the first, and I intend on setting sail on 2 expeditions for the following 5 years after. You know, these aren't tour guide holidays to the Mediterranean, or even the islands around Antarctica. You're sailing into unknown, uncharted waters. You're crossing an ocean in a relatively small vessel. You and your crew need to have balls so gigantic that you're having to carry them around in a wheelbarrow. Again, figuratively speaking, I think the more political correct way to say it is that you've got to be brave. You've got to have some grit about you. Someone that's confident within themselves and comfortable in their own company, at peace with yourself. A competent crew is probably the hardest part to get right and organise in my experience. And it's not just the skills of the crew members. Being trapped aboard a 40, 50 foot yacht out at sea for long periods of time takes the right type of personality and mentality. These type of circumstances can snap a weak mind like a twig. If you or your crew members don't have any sailing experience, then you need to get it. Everyone needs to retain the skills to save themselves in case they're the last person standing and need to make a solo return passage home. My crew and I could possibly help with sailing tuition where we can, but you could also get tuition from any friends and family that you know that sails. Joining a sailing club, completing some of the many sailing courses all over the world, or even better, once you've got a couple of experienced sailors amongst your crew, they could teach the rest of you. Over the past 6 years alone, I've been a full-time liveaboard in my sailing yacht Saorsa. I don't live in a marina, on a dock. I live on anchor and on the ocean no matter the weather. There's nothing more beautiful than sailing at sea on a summer's day with a few good friends, plodding along on a calm 10-15 knots, flying 2 sheets to the wind, a cool breeze on your face and a cold beer or a fat spliff in your hand. But you don't learn from that, and that's not what a true sailor craves. Nothing tests our skills and grit more than the rough stuff. Some get their kicks from riding superbikes, throwing themselves out of aeroplanes, climbing mountains. Us sailors get our thrills from hurricanes and storm-force weather. To experience and survive an 80-mile-an-hour Category 12 gale and hurricane solo without sustaining serious injury or damage to the vessel, it's not about having a death wish, the opposite in fact. It's not fearlessness or stupidity. When Mother Nature sends her full fury, the raw power has a beauty about it. She's breathtaking, and we tend to go a wee bit Lieutenant Dan.
Call this a storm! Oh, you son of a bitch! Oh! It's time for a showdown! You and me! I'm right here! Come and get me! You'll never see this bone!
So when it comes back to the other crews setting up expeditions of their own, I've set up a platform to connect the crew applicants that I've received and ones I get in the future. I only want genuine applications. This is not a game and no one wants their time wasted. I must have had over 1,000 emails from people saying, I want to go, or take me, and that's it. Not even a name or a single detail about yourself. I need to know your basic details. Where you're from, how old you are, if you have any relevant skills, and why you want to do this in the first place. I don't expect an essay of your life story, but I need more than just take me to the ice wall or some dumb shit like that. The platform I've created contains all relevant subject headers and information needed for an expedition, plus all crew are able to add their own knowledge and expertise to each subject and talk amongst yourselves there or in the main chat or privately on a fairly secure server. Build friendships and hopefully crews for future expeditions. All crew will be labelled due to their skill level and experience into roles. For example, if you own a suitable vessel or you have a high level of sailing experience, you'll be labelled as the captain. Lower experienced sailors as a first officer, aka captain's mate. Mechanics, medics, that kind of thing. Or maybe just crew. With this, you can form compatible groups of friends and crews, and even combine crews so you can set off in 2s and 3s for expeditions. Safety in numbers and all that. Obviously I will be present on the platform, and I'll welcome you all in, but it will be my eldest son that will be monitoring the platform daily. He's my upgrade, and like his old man, he doesn't take shit off anyone, so behave yourselves. We won't stand for anyone being abusive to other crew members. If you're there to cause a problem, you'll be kicked out instantly. This is not a democracy, it's not a court or YouTube. You don't get free strikes. This is a platform to unite us, not pull us apart and squabble like they do in the YouTube comment sections. We all have our own truth, opinions and beliefs. We can debate and discuss it like adults and move forward. At the end of the day, we don't have to agree with each other, we just need to combine forces. Any crews formed are going to need their own platform to be able to communicate, to see the plans of an expedition, to be able to add their own knowledge, skills and chat amongst other crew members. This is a backup platform that I've set up, and it will probably be easier to use this to show you the basics of what's needed to set up an expedition. When it comes to my vessels, there's way too much to go through everything. So I'll just skim through it, and if it's something that interests you, just screenshot the pages, I guess. But all this information will be on the platform. And after, I'll give a few examples of suitable vessels that are currently for sale to give you an approximate cost, and I guarantee you it's cheaper than you thought. The deck and cockpit, rigging and sails, mechanical, we've got navigation, communications, electrical, the water supplies and water maker. Most yachts of similar size have about a 200 litre freshwater tank fitted as standard, but you'll have to triple this capacity at a minimum, plus ideally fit a reverse osmosis water maker if you don't have one already. This filters salty seawater into fresh drinking water. Water makers can be expensive, but I build my own units for under 600 sterling. There's some great tutorials on how to build one here on YouTube. We've got safety and equipment, all essential items. This is just interior details and accommodation. Saorsa 1 is a 7-berth yacht, but you can sleep about 10 at a squeeze. A self-sufficient floating house that can travel anywhere in the world. With the main energy of propulsion being the wind, electrically powered by solar and wind turbine, making my own fresh drinking and shower water, and the option kit and skills to sustain an unlimited amount of fresh organic food from the ocean that surrounds me. No forced licenses or insurances, no fees or taxes, no costs and hardly any laws or rules on the ocean. It's the freest way I've found to live, both cost-wise and freedom-wise. We've got heating options and tenders, basically powered dinghies, that kind of thing. The yacht is my home and the tender is kind of like my car. I've had dozens of crew applicants that own their own boats, but if you can't form a crew on the platform with somebody that owns a suitable vessel, you could look into splitting the cost of a boat between you all, and it's probably not as expensive as you'd think. There's a few requirements for a suitable expedition vessel. Unless you can afford like a 200-foot boat, you won't have the fuel capacity to make it to the outer lands and back under a combustion engine. That's why we need a sailboat. The main power and propulsion is the wind, and that doesn't require fuel tanks, plus it's free. Our engines can break down or run out of fuel and we still move forward. You will encounter sea ice and bergs, so for an expedition vessel, you want a yacht with a steel or aluminium hull. My vessel's custom made from 6mm Corten steel. You ideally want a yacht that's 35 foot plus in length. The keel type doesn't really matter, they all have their advantages and disadvantages, and the same goes for sail configuration and rig setup. Boat prices have tanked over the past few years. It's a bad time to sell a boat, but a good time to buy one. You could get a suitable yacht for about 7,000 to 20,000 sterling. Now at that price you'll still need to fit a few upgrades, and I know, let's say 15 grand, 20 grand is a big chunk of money, but divide it by a crew of 6 and that works out about 2.5 grand each. Let's say you fit a few upgrades and it's free, maybe £4,000 per crew member. And I know, £3,000 is still a lot of money, but once you've finished with the boat, been on a couple of expeditions, you could just sell it. You'll get your money back and maybe even make a profit. So theoretically, you could set up an expedition, buy a yacht, use it for as long as you need it, sell it, and it won't cost you anything. And even if you started arranging an expedition today, I guarantee it'll be 12 to 18 months before you're prepared to set off. If this is something that you're really determined to do, you'll find a way in that year to obtain a few £1,000. And when you compare it to one of these fake Antarctic trips I've previously shown you, some of these trips are 30,000 sterling per person for like a week travelling around a few islands near Antarctica. You're not going to go on your Todd, so let's say you take a friend or your partner. That's 60 grand for a sightseeing holiday around a few islands. A couple of pictures of fucking penguins. Expeditions lasting 7-8 weeks at a time, travelling to lands unlike Antarctica that we can walk on and explore without prying eyes. So when it comes to proving what we find out there, I'll go through shortly on how we plan on proving what we witness, but I'm more interested in some feedback from you all on the subject. What would it take to prove it to you? If you were aboard and we found lands, animals and other critters never seen before, just like when they rediscovered Australia, all them new species. Same goes for the trees and plants, maybe even a human population never documented. How would you document and prove what you witnessed? Now I'm sure most of you are probably thinking, I could only truly believe if I've seen it with my own eyes. But think about that. Personally, I've never been to China. I've never actually seen it with my own eyeballs. But I'm 100% certain that China does exist. If I said that I didn't believe that China existed because I hadn't seen it, I'd sound like a right idiot. So what would it take to make you believe in somewhere you've never seen? Between us all, we have multiple of the usual camera equipment, and I'm even bringing back the old school with film cartridges and instant type cameras. Multiple mapping and surveillance drones, which are a modern essential for expeditions such as this, which have features such as thermal mapping, photogrammetry, LiDAR with 2D and 3D modelling, and image stitching. To be able to sit aboard the vessel in safety while exploring the lands for possible dangers will be key before setting out on a land expedition on foot. If it's deemed to be safe to go to the land and it's habitable, I'll be leading multiple 48-hour expeditions on foot inland to any interesting areas detected by the drones. All crew will have a camera to film a daily vlog type diary, plus a journal that they can keep, which the pages can be scanned once we return. This will give you all an opportunity to know the crew, to see and read multiple accounts of the daily events and personal experience of this adventure. One thing I won't be doing is live streaming like some prick or giving out any signals while underway or on location. At the end of the day, I can't fake this. If I show any coastline in our known world and try to pass it off as hidden lands, not only will people recognise it, but there's AI programs that can detect CGI fakery and will prove that the land I'll be showing you has never been seen or recorded before. My future plans and expeditions depends on these first two and what we find out there. I know that I'll find lands that I'm looking for, but even if I don't, the expeditions will still carry on. There's a difference between trying to find hidden outer lands and exploring areas that we already know the location of, like the North Pole, the Arctic, and the landmass known as Antarctica. We know where these places are. They both need exploration, and at the end of the day, the captain goes wherever the fuck he wants to. No other man has the right to tell me what to do. So for the following year's expeditions, I'll be adding vessels to my fleet. I want a 90-foot motor sailor that will hold an extra 18 crew and passengers, and a 200-foot steel icebreaker vessel that cuts a path if needed for the other vessels. These icebreakers don't work like battering rams. Their engines push its bow onto the ice, and the weight of the vessel breaks the ice beneath. So they kind of hump their way through the ice. But ice or not, either way it's multi-use. The icebreaker will be useful as a cargo vessel and to accommodate an extra 60 crew and passengers, plus other equipment like a helicopter that I'll pilot myself, a medical theatre, and any other kit and vehicles needed for any scenario. In total, them 4 vessels will give me a capacity of about 90 crew and passengers per expedition. So for these future expeditions, I'm looking for crew with the following skills, knowledge and qualifications. Boat owners, experienced sailors, mechanics, both diesel motors and light aircraft. Pilots and navigational experts, cartographers, mapping drone and aquadrone pilots, computer sciences, geologists, climatologists, botanists, biologists, oceanographers and divers, zoologists, nature photographers and videographers, medics, surgeons, doctors, nurses, orthodontists. I'm not expecting to find certain roles like surgeons, but there's plenty of expedition staff sites where I can buy me a surgeon and any other experienced crew, but I'd much prefer enlightened people from the truth community over some non-player character or cult shill. In my last video I briefly talked about the repopulation period after the last reset event and hypothesised about the possible cloning of humans, including subjects like the incubator babies, growing babies, selling babies, the orphan trains and the mass distribution of children around the world during this time frame, theorising that this is where we might get all the soulless, thoughtless, non-player characters that surround us. And I mean that literally. Most have probably heard the term NPC, and if asked to explain an example of an NPC, you'll probably say something along the lines of, it's a person that you've tried to wake up, but they just wouldn't listen to you. Most often they just gave you a vacant expression and changed the subject, or the usual brainless mockery and laughing at you, calling you a conspiracy theorist while refusing to acknowledge any evidence. We can all relate to that, right? But the reasoning to this type of behaviour goes much deeper than them just being more indoctrinated into the system than you. It goes way beyond them being brainwashed or just stupid. You've had the same level of indoctrination, brainwashing and dumbing down, but you're wide awake while they remain fast asleep. You can't wake up a non-player character. They're background people. They can't go against their programming. Now, the reason why I say these non-player characters exist in a literal sense is because I can undeniably prove that they exist and that you are surrounded by soulless, empty vessels that are running on a program. There are 2 different species of human in this realm, and they come in both genders, all colours and creeds. Easily provable in many different ways, including scientifically. And once I've pieced it together for you, it will make perfect sense to why they were created and why the world is the way it is right now. I guarantee you all have friends and family members that are non-player characters. You might even find out that you're one yourself, as I suspect that about 90% of even YouTube truth content creators are non-player characters playing conspiracy theorists. And once I've shown you how to easily identify them and you question them, they'll outright admit it. But don't worry, it's not like how it is on the movie They Live.
I've got one that can see.
The easiest way to identify the difference between a human being with a soul and a human being without a soul is to ask them if they have an internal monologue, an inner dialogue, inner speech. Non-player characters don't retain an internal monologue, a subconscious. Simply put, an internal monologue is the voice a souled human being has inside their head. To be able to hear our own thoughts and to be able to have a conversation with ourselves inside our own head. We don't hear the voice with our ears, we hear it subvocally, when words are formed in thought and expressed inwardly. Non-player characters don't have the ability to think like we do, and I'll be showing you some of the interviews with non-player characters shortly, but this is something that you can do by interviewing the non-player characters in your own circle of friends and family. But how I see this, our internal monologue is our subconsciousness. It's our higher self, our life force, our soul. It's our connection to Source, or heaven, or God, if that's what you want to call it. Adrian Rich said it best. God is the name that we give to the blanket that we throw over the mystery to give it shape. Our inner monologue, our subconscious, our soul is essential and knows everything. We have the ability to ask our higher self anything of meaning, and you can receive answers and information immediately and directly from Source. But without this subconscious, we are an empty, soulless vessel running on biological programs that I'll get onto shortly. An animal isn't conscious. It doesn't have an internal monologue. It just runs on instincts and its biological program. There's so many amazing interviews online, but it's just that no one's put any of these pieces together until now. I'm going to play a couple of clips from good interviews, but I'll add my favourite 10 to 20 interviews in the description box below.
So like if you look, like I could look at myself in the mirror, talk in my head without opening my mouth. You physically can't do that.
No.
And what would happen if you tried to do that?
I have tried to do that since learning that an internal monologue exists, and I end up speaking out loud to myself. So most of my conversations are out loud.
I feel like this information to the people that can think in their head is a lot more like exciting news. I've talked to a few people that can't do this, and they seem less enthused as the people that do have this internal monologue.
Correct.
Does that make sense?
Yep.
Okay.
I'm very confused as to why people are so perplexed.
All right,
by
so
it.
the probably most requested question was, how do you read? Like when I read, I hear the words in my head. I don't know how you could possibly read without not hearing the words.
When I read, I can see the sentence structure. Like in my head, every sentence has a shape, so you can see like the shape of the sentence. And then also like keywords will pop out, and I can file those away into my like concept map. So at the end of reading something, I can have a concept map of the main topics that I read about. And I tend to move my lips when I read. So like essentially I'm saying it out loud, but it's just not like audible.
So do you visualize the setting when you're reading a book?
No, it's not like images. It's just the words.
So do you like reading like fiction books, like where you have to put yourself in a situation?
I never really enjoyed reading.
At
and
all?
I think maybe that's why. Like I can see the story plot.
Are you a fast reader?
Yes, very fast reader.
We could have a 100-question test. She's done when I'm on question 12. I'm not even kidding. It is superhuman. It's not fair. How do you know what you're thinking if there's no words?
Because I can see it.
I think that's why this whole thing is going viral, is because people like me can't understand how you get through a day without talking to yourself.
I don't know. I just feel like the information is in there, and I can pull it forward if I wanted. Like it's all just like it's like files. There's categories of information in my head, and I can pull them to the front if I need them. But
I feel like I could do that. Like if I'm studying, I could like pull things out. But just like if I'm sitting and like I have a thought, or someone is like walking by and I have a thought about that person, I'm like talking to myself about that. Does that not happen to you?
no. If I have a thought, normally I say it out loud.
I can't do this. Do you daydream often?
No, never. Hardly ever. I can't think of a time that I've daydreamed, I don't think.
Do you dream at night?
Yes.
And are they normal dreams? Do you hear dialogue in those dreams?
I don't think so, actually.
Do you enjoy being alone? I like this question.
Yeah, I do.
So like if you don't have anything in front of you, like no stimulus, what is going on in your head?
Oh, I always have to be doing stuff. Like if I'm alone, I'm cleaning, I'm cooking, I'm like watching Netflix, I'm studying. But I hardly ever I don't just sit there alone.
Do you have any theories on this? yourself? / do you even care?
I don't really care. Like this feels really normal to me.
I can't even do this because I can't wrap my head around this. But she is so nonchalant about it, it makes me uncomfortable. I don't get it.
I don't know. It's just my everyday life, so I just do it. I do, like, if I'm laying in bed at night, like, I have trouble getting to sleep because I can see, like, lists of things I need to do. And in order to make them go away, I have to go write them down. That's actually one of the questions. Do you fall asleep easily, like quickly, or no?
Is it harder to fall asleep?
Harder to fall asleep. Because I think I'm being almost visually stimulated when like even my eyes are closed. I can't shut it out.
Yeah, I feel like for me, that voice is just constantly talking, and that makes it also very difficult to sleep. And that's why I feel like a lot of people that are in my situation also think that, like, they wish they could shut it off, and they're kind of jealous of your situation. But then again, we don't know what's going on in your head at all, so it could be even worse. So
I feel like the conversations you're probably having in your head are what I'm seeing in my head.
Yeah. Do you get anxiety?
Yeah. I tend to have really physical symptoms of anxiety. So it's less, I think, of a mental, like, I don't really feel like I am anxious until I realize that, like, my hands are shaking or I feel really nauseated or kind of more like physical symptoms of anxiety.
A bunch of people actually messaged me, and they said that most of the people that don't have this internal monologue are bilingual and speak multiple languages. Do you speak multiple languages, or
no?
Were you just good at, like, high school language, whatever you took?
Yeah, I was really good at high school language. I took 2 languages, and I know a little bit of 2 other languages. So I love language. I actually wanted to go into linguistics at one point in my life.
That's interesting.
I love sentence structure.
If you're on a date, how do you know if you like them or not?
You still feel stuff.
You still feel it?
We still feel.
You're not, like, judging them, like, looking at them and be like, why would they wear that shirt? Or why does he keep talking, and why won't he shut up?
I think the things that you have in your head are probably more of, like, the check boxes in my head. So, like, certain things will be like, yep, or like, nope.
I can't do this.
This is Alex Mason, a computer systems engineer in Boston, Massachusetts. Surprisingly, he was just as shocked as me to learn about all this, but for the opposite reason. He had no idea other people, like myself, had an inner monologue.
I thought it was very strange that there are people who just continually sort of talk inside their own head. It doesn't make sense to me. Like, if I have nothing to do and I'm not working on anything, I'm in the nothing box. There's nothing going on.
See, I'm trying to put myself in your head where I'm trying to visualize nothing, where that shuts off.
I call it the nothing box.
The nothing box. So what is that like? Can you just try to put in words?
So it's difficult to describe nothing, but it's truly nothing, right? Like, have you ever had one of those moments where you're sort of sitting somewhere and your eyes sort of glaze over and you daydream a little bit? It's like that, except without the daydream. So you're just sort of sitting there, nothing is coming in, nothing is going out, nothing is happening inside. You're just there.
It's like daydreaming without the daydream, and you're just there. Not only can I not comprehend that actually sounds kind of scary and awful. But what's funny is my way of thinking with an inner monologue sounds awful to him. I have a 24/7 podcast going on in my head where I hear it's me narrating my life, reminding me of things, criticizing myself to myself.
That sounds horrible. It really does, right? I think I'd go crazy if that was the case.
I spoke with Christian Spink and Tom Foster, who both say they not only lack an inner monologue, but they also can't visualize anything in their minds.
Completely blank upstairs, yep.
You're completely blank upstairs.
Completely blank, and on the extreme end of both.
Wow.
I'm just complete darkness, complete silence, so.
Christian says his brain works more like a machine, a computer, but with a twist. Can you, like, put into words, or at least try to put into words, how you think?
It's very hard to get a visual representation of nothing, if that makes sense. Basically, the way I like to think of it is, so if you can imagine your mind's eye being a computer screen in your head. So like if I want to use Google, you type something in and you'll get a visual representation on the screen. It's like I've got a computer in there with no screen and I just know what the computer's thinking. If you took away the monitor and you still had your inputs, the computer would still know what that image looks like. It's just not displaying it for you. So that's kind of the best way I can.
Tom, who is 31, says he discovered his brain was wired differently than most people only 3 years ago, when he tried out meditative yoga and the instructor asked him to clear his mind.
There was about half an hour of guided meditation, and they started off with like, clear your mind. And I was just like lying there on like this yoga mat, just staring at the ceiling, just basically completely bored. And then I had the realization that nearly everyone else has a voice in their head running constantly.
And this revelation led him to having an existential crisis, including wondering if he was even alive.
All of my friends have these like rich inner lives with so much happening, and like set off all these kind of like existential questions where I'm just like, am I only living like half a life? I don't have an inner life. Am I actually alive? Am I actually alive? Do I have a soul? Does everyone else have a soul? And all that kind of thing. So it's like a kind of that daunting realization that I may actually be an NPC.
Tom, like Christian, describes his brain like a computer without a monitor, absorbing raw information, kind of like the green numbers in the Matrix, without actually seeing the green numbers.
It's kind of like everything stored in there as zeros and ones. It's more of an absorption, if that makes sense. You're sort of just absorbing the information as it happens.
I can't wrap my brain around just looking at a page in a book and simply absorbing it. Now, what about memories? Christian says his inability to see anything in his mind prohibits him from visualizing the faces of his family.
So I've got a wife and a son. I close my eyes and I can't visualize them. Really? I know what they look like. I can describe them to you, but there's no visualization of that.
But when I ask him to recall a childhood memory, he suddenly goes into great detail about being 5 years old and building a wooden sword with his grandfather inside his green tool shed. What's going on in your brain right now as you think about that memory?
This is the hardest part to describe. And this is what I'm saying. It's like, there's that information there. So it's kind of like, there's no movie playing or anything like that. It's just a recall of information, which is, again, hard to describe when there's no moving parts or visual parts, I guess.
I would say if I'm recalling a moment or a memory, you ever scroll on Instagram and you see a moving thumbnail that loops? It's a preview of what that video is. It's like 3 seconds and then it loops. 3 seconds, then it loops. That's a little bit like me. So if I'm remembering being a kid on the beach with my grandmother, I see like a moment, but it doesn't play for 5 minutes. It plays for like a few seconds and then just kind of like loops. It's like a moving moment that loops like in my head.
It's insanity to me, Stephen, that happens.
What I consider normal, Christian considers insanity, and vice versa.
And the response type videos from people with no internal monologues are really interesting too.
I do not experience an inner monologue, and that's the same as a lot of other people. And so when you, as someone with an inner monologue, label us NPCs or non-monos, you're actually engaging in a form of hate. Now you might ask, well, what goes on in your head? How do you think? That's a bit weird. But I would argue that those of you who do have inner monologues are the weird ones, and I find it a little bit creepy. You know, what are you thinking? What are you planning? What's going on in your head? Why is that happening? Because the truth is that I go about my life in a perfectly normal way. And when I need to form an opinion, I go to a trusted news site, and depending on how I'm feeling, I will take that opinion based on facts and that will become my own. And so to those of you labeling us and demeaning us and making out that we're less than you, I would point out that we are in fact the majority, and you should think about who you're picking a fight with.
There's a decent amount of scientific research on the subject in the form of psychologists like Dr. Russell Hulbert's comprehensive studies. There's multiple simple ways to test to see if someone has a subconscious or not, one being what's called an aphantasia test. Now, close your eyes. Imagine a red apple in your mind. Picture it. Now, open your eyes. Which option did you see? If for you it was number 5, nothing, just black or white, the chances are you don't have an internal monologue. People without this can't imagine images in their head. They know what a red apple looks like, but they just can't picture it in their mind's eye. I can imagine a red apple in my mind in perfect detail. I could turn it into a bowl of red apples. With a single thought, I can turn it into a bowl of green apples. Another thought and they're grown from the tree. I can reach up and pick one. I can take a bite and taste it. I can smell it. I can pick a seed from its core and plant it. Let there be light. I can watch it grow before my mind's eye into a fully formed apple tree full of apples. And with a quick thought, I can turn them back to red apples. I can create an entire world in my head to where I can grow crops and even eat them. I can do and create anything. Some would claim that we're all one, that we're all one consciousness. But what if 3/4 of the population didn't have a subconscious? It kind of disproves that we're all one, right? These are just a few of the common traits of a non-player character. What we've just gone through, they don't have an internal monologue, a dialogue, a subconscious. They don't daydream, ever. They struggle getting to sleep and tend to be very light sleepers. They don't like being alone without distracting themselves. They're fast readers. They read by paragraphs, not word by word. It's about the shape of the paragraph, not the individual words connecting like it is with us. They tend to be or have the potential to be bilingual, so they have the ability to learn new languages quickly. They feel emotions like anxiety, but it's just the physical side of the emotion. If you retain a soul inside your meat sack, you have 5 ways of thinking. We've got inner speaking, the internal monologue, that voice inside your head. Inner seeing, in imagery. Seeing a visual representation of your thoughts, a video clip or a snapshot from the past, or even just imagery you've completely made up in your head. Feelings, basically a conscious experience of an emotional process such as feeling sad if a loved one has passed. Unsymbolised thinking, when the lights are on but no one's home, so when you're running on autopilot doing something subconsciously. And sensory awareness, so paying attention to a sensory aspect during an unimportant reason. I put these pieces of the puzzle together a while ago, so I've had time to accept the fact that there are 2 very different types of human beings in this world, and the fact that non-player characters exist and surround us. I found NPCs amongst my own friends and family, and I'd imagine most of you actual thinkers out there that have thoughts running through your heads are pondering questions like, what happens if you reproduce with a non-player character? Why create them? What's their uses? How are they programmed? And what's the percentage of them? 2-souled human beings with an internal monologue can only produce a child with a soul and an internal monologue. And obviously, 2 people without a soul can't produce a human being with a soul. If someone with an internal monologue and someone without has a child, I don't know the exact percentage, but it seems to be about a 50-50 to if the child has an internal monologue itself. But social media has some great interviews and psychological reports of couples in a relationship with children where one of the parents have a soul and the other doesn't. The same goes with videos like this one. There's 2 sisters, a lovely interview to watch. One has an internal monologue and the other doesn't.
The sense of a tree is like a conceptual feeling. So when I think about a tree, like it just goes, you know, from the roots, like. Okay, what's poo? What's rabbit? What's cheese? Like that shape. Huh. A wedge. Wow. Yeah. And it's like the feeling of a wedge. Yeah, with yellow attached.
Ooh.
Yeah.
What's mauve?
You need to move a little bit.
I
love it too! You're the colours of a sunset, just to let you know.
Oh, that's so nice.
Yeah, like orange and kind of pink and red and yellow.
There's so many great interviews on this subject, but unfortunately it seems to be a subject that's been suppressed and tanked over the past few years. Due to my lack of personal interviews, I don't feel confident enough to put a percentage to how much of the population are non-player characters across the world. I've heard compelling reports of anywhere between 40 to 80% non-player characters. This subject just needs much more study to really give an accurate percentage in my opinion. But the way that this world is run right now, and has been since the end of the last reset when the cult took over the reins of this world, we're being run under the illusion of a democracy, right? I'd imagine the majority of actual thinkers have become tired of political theatre and the pantomime of it all, and don't bother voting. I would assume that there must be over 50% non-player characters for them to run the world the way they do. Some would say if you don't vote for one of these puppets every few years, you have no right to complain when the wrong one gets elected into power. But the reality is the complete opposite in fact. These cult script readers do not retain any real form of power. But if you are the one voting these lying parasites in and taking part in their pantomime and illusion of democracy, then you have no right to complain when they inevitably bend you over and fuck you up the arse. At that point, you need to shut your whining mouths and take it like the weak, pathetic, obedient and foolish slave that you are. None of these parasites are worthy of our votes, and if I was forced to vote, I vote we hang them from the fucking lampposts. The cult couldn't enslave you through their democracies without having a large percentage of the population running under their programming. Giving you the illusion of democracy and freedom is a much more productive way of dealing with slaves than simply putting them in shackles and whipping them. With the illusion of freedom and the option to choose what you want to be when you grow up, to be able to get married, the illusion of owning your own home, reproducing new productive slaves for them, going on the yearly 2-week holiday that your employer allows, you'll be a much more productive and obedient slave when you have something to lose. And shackles, whips and cages is the old ways. They've become psychological experts. Your cage is now in your head. When I talk about non-player characters being programmed or running on programs, I don't mean programming such as typing one up and uploading it Matrix style. I don't think they can learn Kung Fu in a couple of seconds. What do you think schooling is for? The supposed educational system. Legally forced, non-negotiable national curriculum, aka the dumb down of humanity. Do you really think this forced indoctrination is for us thinkers? Us thinkers are punished for our thoughts, intelligence and common sense in their propaganda camps. You're taught to shut up, listen and repeat. If you repeat it well, you'll get a better job. If not, then it's to the factories, building sites and cannon fodder. Us real-souled human beings see straight through their bullshit. Like I've said, these forced indoctrination camps are for the non-player characters, not us. Same as the NASA and space bullshit, it's for them, not us. They know we don't believe this shite. Even Katy Perry went into space recently, right? In a cock-shaped rocket. Where have we seen this before? I'd like to say you can't make this shit up. But they do. They know that we don't buy this stuff, but the non-player characters don't doubt it for a second. Katy Perry and the rest of these trannies. I'm actually surprised Big Mike wasn't aboard, leading the way with his gigantic cock. And I've heard this prick's building a base on the moon and Mars as well. That'll be about as real as his piece of shit car in space. They know that we don't buy this stuff. But when a large percentage of the population don't have the ability to think, and they've been programmed with this nonsense since nursery, there's nothing that they won't accept. Once programmed as a child until about the age of 14, they can't go against their programming unless the programmers change it themselves. The only way we could change it is to change the programming and re-educate the non-player characters' children. And the same goes for the cult's news media and social media. These weapons do damage both thinkers and non-thinkers, but still these weapons are for the non-player characters, not us. That's why the news media seems so ridiculous to us. They know we don't buy it, but we are the minority in their democracy, and democracy crushes the minority. And don't even get me onto the religious indoctrination. If you can't see this yourself, then you're a lost cause. Stage events like 9/11, we see through it, but this was to get the non-player character masses on board so they could get away with pillaging and taking over more lands, resources and people, and blessing them with democracy and freedom. Well, the illusion of it at least. But the soulless aren't just voters. These weapons have many uses for the cult's agendas. I can only call this next part a theory of mine, but it's a fairly strong theory. Let's say, for example, the cult want to strip a country or a state's firearms, as the cult know from past experience that a population of slaves that are armed or can defend themselves are a danger to them and their agendas. So as they do, they slowly chip away at a country or a state's firearm rights. What's stopping them from programming one of their non-player characters with techniques and methods of mind manipulation that they often brag about mastering? They'll admit that the human mind is hackable. To alter the mindset of some poor innocent non-player character child and to have them walk into a school and start unloading on their schoolmates. It's how they stripped the UK of their firearms. Just one of many examples was Scotland's Dunblane massacre in 1996, when Thomas Hamilton walked into a primary school and elementary school and shot a teacher and 16 children. Within 6 months, the cult implicated an entire UK ban of pistols and revolvers in private ownership and much stricter licensing in general. Thomas Hamilton did not have a firearms licence and he obtained his guns illegally. But because this non-player character changed the opinions of the non-player character general public, all actual legal responsible firearm owners were punished. This incident in Dunblane was 30 years ago. And as you can see with the UK gun crime stats, firearm crimes has been steady ever since. And 30 years later, the only people that can obtain firearms or pistols are the criminals. And then criminals come in 2 categories: the drug dealing gang type criminals and the cult thug enforcers. These militant, narcissistic, psychopathic and high-level non-player characters that controls and collects revenue from you. The bodyguard and enforcers of the cult. Most of the time these staged events, mass shootings and massacres result in the last programming to be putting the gun into your own mouth and blowing your brains out, or walking into 100 bullets from the police. And the police are always shown as heroes for killing the child. But when they do survive and asked why, the shooter doesn't even recall the event, or maybe says something like they don't know why they did it, or the voices in my head told me to do it. Imagine you're a non-player character with no internal voice in your head, and all of a sudden there's a voice in your head, but it's not yours. Maybe it's even Jesus. Let's say the cult needs some more distractions, theatre and the sway of their non-player characters. They can stage a shooting and attempt assassination of the Orange Man. Just put your non-player character in place, riddle him with bullets, job done. Fucking legend. I'm not saying that sold people can't commit awful crimes, but maybe, just maybe, all of these mass shootings, murders that always seems to fit into the cult's agendas, but also rapists, paedophiles, mass murderers, maybe the majority of these are just programmed non-player characters as well. We know that the cult love to nonce up children. They love our misery. It's almost like they feed off it. Death and destruction, turning this beautiful world and its people upside down. Now, the last thing that I wanted to say on this subject before we move on, in no way am I trying to incite violence or a divide between sold or unsold people with the information that I've presented to you here. But the non-player characters aren't on your side. They're not with you to begin with. I'm sick of hearing shite like, people are waking up or wait till everybody wakes up. Non-player characters can't wake up. You've got more chance in fake Jesus coming to save you than you have the non-player characters. At the end of the day, Pandora's box has been opened. They're here. They've been curated. I know of unsold people in my own circle of friends and family, and it doesn't change anything. They're still my friends and family. I still love them, and I'd defend them with my life if I had to. The high majority are good people, living good lives, doing good things. They just don't know that there's something missing from themselves. As I've said, I can't just openly tell you which of the outer landmasses I've chosen to for the first expedition, but I do feel the need to advise any would-be sailors or expeditions on where not to go. Now, of course, we need multiple expeditions in all directions and to every landmass around us and beyond, but the way things are in this lunatic asylum clown world that we all live in, there's certain lands that I'd advise you to stay clear of for now, like Antarctica, aka the Land of Fire, Terra del Fuego, Galicia and Lakesh. The seas around Antarctica have a high level of daily traffic. You can go on AIS or online at any time and see the marine traffic around Antarctica and surrounding islands and ice shelves. You can click on them, find out information about them, including their MMSI number, which is like a direct phone number to their VHF radios. They're mainly expedition supply ships, tour-type vessels, or pleasure vessels like my own. And my point is, it's too busy around Antarctica to just be able to anchor up and sneak onto the land for a land expedition. If any other vessels or aircraft see you landing on Antarctica, they'll grass you in straight away. It's against their treaty rules to step on land past the 60th degree south, and you will be arrested and punished severely if you're caught. Which takes us back to something from my last video that I don't think sunk in, due to the hundreds of comments and emails warning me of being intercepted past the 60th degree south. These are the rules of the Antarctic Treaty, set in place by the treaty's governors, which are all the high-powered countries' governments worldwide. Rule number 6. The treaty applies to all land or ice shelves past south of the 60 degrees south, but not the seas. So, the only rule is, you can't step on land or ice shelves past south of the 60 degrees south, but the treaty doesn't apply to the seas. Meaning, we can legally travel anywhere on the oceans and seas. This is 60 degrees south on Monty's map, and this is the 60th degree south on a modern map. We can sail past south of the 60 degrees south with no issues or rules broken. This is their rules. No one has the legal right to intercept you or turn you back or arrest you or harm you. They're telling you in rule number 6, you can sail and travel wherever the fuck you want. The truth is, no one's physically trying to stop you from leaving and exploring this world. They've just filled most people's brains with conspiracy theories, beliefs and bullshit, and that your own unnecessary fear keeps you from figuring out reality or leaving. And the other landmasses that I would advise you not to travel to is Galicia and Lakesh. I found so many proofs and hints that the top level cult members inhabit certain hidden lands for themselves. For example, they now give us Nova Guinea, now called Australia, but they keep Lakesh hidden and even diverting marine traffic and air traffic in this area. Think about it, these parasites wouldn't poison the masses' bodies and minds, poison our healthcare, the educational system, poison the water supply, the food, and even the air we breathe, then just live amongst us. They clearly despise us. Would they really live amongst their slaves? These parasites feed off you. They've enslaved you and even indoctrinated you into calling them things like the elites or the royals. Mind games to make you think that they're better than you. There's a reason why the cult and the super rich own all these ocean crossing super yachts and large aircraft. Where do you think they're travelling to? The location of Lakesh and Galicia from the west coast of the Americas is perfect for these parasites. And who hasn't heard stories and reports from back in the day about the court transporting large cargo out south? Always assumed it was to Antarctica, but why would they go and freeze their bollocks off when they've got paradise next door? For most in the truth community, they believe that we're surrounded by an ice wall, commonly called the Antarctic ice wall. Now this fantasy comes from the court and their 1892 Gleason's map. The Flat Earth model map is the 1892 Gleason's map. It's exactly the same image. And same goes for the 1943 Petera to hand map. And the same as the United Nations. When we put the Gleason's map next to the Monty map, it's pretty close. So in 1892, where did Gleason get his layout from? He clearly copied it from Monty's 1587 map. I don't really have an issue with the Flat Earth model's land layout. It's the ice wall that's the biggest issue. All they've done in this timeline is replace all but Australia with an ice wall. In the previous video, I also took you through all the ways to travel to Antarctica. I showed that all travel to Antarctica is through, over or next to the Drake Passage. And I stated the fact that you can't access Antarctica south from anywhere else in the world but South America. You can't travel south from Australia and hit a landmass over here. Nor can you access Antarctica south of India, Africa or anywhere else in this world travelling south. I've even had people trying to debunk me about this absolute fact, sending me trips from places like South Africa to Antarctica. But I click on the link this end, I look up the route map, and as always, it's not a route going south from South Africa. Sure, this would be the most direct route, but instead the vessel travels west across the Atlantic to the Drake Passage, where they visit a few islands around the peninsula before crossing the Drake to South America and getting a flight back to Africa. And it doesn't matter which tour guide's taking you, the routes never take you direct south from anywhere else other than South America. Antarctica does not wrap around our world, nor are we trapped and enclosed by an ice wall. It's just cult propaganda from our dogshit timeline. CGI fantasy cartoon maps like these are created to trap you in your own mind and in fear, to make you feel hopeless. They've brainwashed you with unproven fantasy nonsense like the Summer Gates bullshit that non-player characters spew out. Antarctica is an island landmass 600 miles off the coast of South America, a landmass of about 5 million miles square, which is about the size of the United States and Mexico combined. Antarctica has a coastline circumference of about 30,000 nautical miles. Anyone can freely and legally circumnavigate Antarctica. I only know 2 people personally that have circumnavigated Antarctica. A friend of mine, Stuart, and my uncle Crispin Agnew. And he's led multiple Navy and Army scientific surveying and mountaineering expeditions to the Arctic and Antarctic, like the 1966 and 1968 Greenland expeditions. In 1970 to 1971, he conducted geographical surveys of Elephant Island, Clarence Island, King George Island and Flod Glacier, and led another expedition inland from the Patagonian icefield in 1973. So I trust the word of my own friend and uncle over bullshit claims of an Antarctic ice wall that wraps around us with no evidence whatsoever to back it up. Solo circumnavigation of Antarctica is much more rare. To my knowledge, there's only 3 people in our timeline that solo circumnavigated Antarctica. Lisa Blair back in 2017 was the first woman, and the last woman I guess, to circle Antarctica. As a sailor, most of the time being solo, I totally understand why this landmass is unappealing to anybody, never mind solo sailors. It's the only landmass in our known world that we can sail around, but we're not allowed to step foot on it. You can't just anchor up, go ashore in a dinghy and stretch your legs, collect some supplies, that kind of thing. You've got no option but to sail continually, sailing 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, for about 120 days straight. I live at sea, and even to me, that sounds like hell. Most would call Antarctica the South Pole, but in reality, there's no such thing as a South Pole. It's a globe concept. Do you see a South Pole on Monty's map, or any other old world map? We only have a magnetic north. We still have a magnetic arch from the anode island to the cathode island either side. South is just us moving away from magnetic north. We can travel south, but there's no South Pole. There's no magnetic south. There's no southern power source. As their mainstream narrative states, the magnetic south isn't even on the continent of Antarctica. It's somewhere over here. But I'll let one of their non-player character dipshit tour guide scientists try to explain why compasses don't work at the South Pole. But this guy makes me fucking cringe.
Out here in the Ross Sea, McMurdo Sound. I'm on Ross Island, that's where McMurdo Science Station is. And I'm going to show you about how compasses work. So here's my compass I brought from home. And there's a difference between magnetic north and geographical north. Geographical north is the North Pole, where all the lines of longitude meet. The magnetic South Pole is going to be where the magnetic pole lines up. And just so happens that the magnetic South Pole right now isn't even on the continent of Antarctica. It's off of Antarctica. And there's a thing called declination. That's the difference between the two, geographic and magnetic. Currently, it's about 140 degrees difference, which means that if your compass did work, it would lead you in almost the complete opposite direction.
So like this retard says, the magnetic South Pole isn't even on the continent of Antarctica. It's over here. And if you go over here, it's over here. It just moves around for the cult's narrative's convenience. You can't locate something that doesn't exist. All we do get is the imaginary geographic South Pole for the tourists. But when it comes to these other outer lands, I have good reason to know that these lands are safer to travel to. And remember, we're not breaking any laws or rules to be travelling south of the 60 degrees south. And even if it was illegal, it's impossible to police the oceans. They're absolutely ginormous, and until you've been in the middle of an ocean in a small vessel, you just can't comprehend how gigantic they are. It would take millions of vessels to even attempt to police the oceans and outer ring. Why would they waste resources and manpower trying to stop you from leaving when no one's trying to leave? And before anyone starts rambling on about radar, the best radar has a range of about 200 nautical miles, and my vessels are about 40-ish foot long, and they have the radar reflectors removed. I'll be completely invisible. When I see photos and videos on and around Antarctica, I don't see the frozen waste ground that we're led to believe when it comes to this landmass. With all the greenery and freshwater lakes, rivers that run red, thermal lakes and ocean, a frozen waste ground, but don't forget your bikini and swim shorts. In my opinion, this place looks stunning and looks perfectly habitable. It kinda reminds me of Alaska or parts of Russia. Years back, we could zoom into this landmass, and I'm not saying that what we were seeing was real, but we could see some type of detail. We could see mountain ranges, things like that. It wasn't completely whited out like it is now. But we can watch documentaries filmed in the 1940s, like Admiral Byrd's 1946 Operation High Jump. And as you'll see, there were 300 square mile areas found in Antarctica free of ice with freshwater thermal lakes that they landed on.
The pilot, Commander David E. Bunger, wipes his frosted windshield, a constant source of trouble in polar flying. He is over the Shackleton ice shelf, named for the great English explorer who kept returning to the Antarctic until death, so often escaped, kept its rendezvous with him. The smooth shelf roughens. Dark rocks, called nunataks, appear above the ice. Then rugged mountain ranges as far as the eye can see. Bunger leans forward in amazement. His eyes have caught a sudden and unbelievable change in scenery. The universal white has turned to chocolate brown, dotted with blue. A cameraman goes into action. 300 square miles of land without snow. Land that might be in New Mexico or Arizona. Pictures alone will prove Bunger has discovered a warm oasis in the shadow of the pole. It is for such supreme moments as this that men brave the hardships of exploration. The astounding, undreamed of fact is that they are over a chain of warm water lakes whose shores, except for small patches, are free of ice and snow. Commander Bunger circles the largest lake in sight, 5 miles long. He comes in to make a landing. Water temperatures must be recorded. Samples taken. He finds the water fresh, the temperature 38 degrees Fahrenheit. On the shores are vast deposits of coal and of minerals of the utmost importance to civilization. Aside from their headline discovery, Bunger and his men have another good reason for hustling home to the Currituck.
As we can see with the temperature graphs, since the 1940s it's only become warmer over this past 100 years. We can even see the little ice age which caused this freezing event and that transition into our warmer period. The world temperature has only gotten warmer since 1946, so where have these ice-free thermally warm areas gone on Antarctica? Why can we only see white and digital squares? In the Secret Lands documentary they stated that this particular 300 square mile area was off the Shackleton ice shelf. This is the Shackleton ice shelf, so this ice-free area was around here. But on Google Earth it's just whited out. There couldn't be any more blatant that they're hiding what is in this area. After 80 years since this footage of warmer weather should have made these areas larger and even started growing trees. The last thing I wanted to discuss about Antarctica are these bullshit final experiments. Supposedly proving that we live on a globe in a pathetic attempt at debunking our flat realm. Now, I'd never heard about these so-called experiments until recently, so I'm no expert when it comes to this Pastor Shill's videos. Obviously a paid shill and deceiver. And I think he collaborated with this retard's channel. Again, I'd never heard of this guy until recently. This is one of the supposed flat earthers that went on this experiment to the imaginary South Pole and returned a glober. Once you've come to the realisation that we don't live on a globe, there's no going back to it. In my opinion, this pond scum's just another non-player character or a low IQ Joe Rogan, another sellout shill. Anyways, I'm not much of a watcher, especially when it comes to content off globetards. I'm allergic to bullshit. But I kept hearing mentions of these final experiments debunking the reality of our flat earth, so I decided to have a ganders. I find these type of videos to be so painful to watch, especially ones like this that could debunk him back and prove he has no valid points whatsoever. In this video, Pastor Shill claims that all flat earthers models revolve around the Antarctic ice wall that wraps around our world. Now of course, we don't all believe that. Sure, I might be the only one in the community that doesn't believe in the fantasy ice wall that shills like this have brainwashed you into believing in the first place. In this video, Pastor Shill talks about circumnavigating Antarctica, and if given permission from the Antarctic Treaty to go on to Antarctica, which they never would, but if they did, we could walk from one side of Antarctica to the other. Now, even though I agree with him, Pastor Shill isn't going to walk from coast to coast, nor would he get permission to. Plus, it would be like walking from the east coast to the west coast of the United States. But in Pastor Shill's delusions, this disproves our flat world and proves his spinny globe. Now of course, Pastor Shill doesn't personally prove anything in any of the videos I've watched of his, but he does make some good points to the fact that there is no Antarctic ice wall wrapping around us. But he seems to think this disproves our flat realm and proves the globe that it's clearly shilling. It's sometimes hard to figure out if someone's a non-player character playing conspiracy theorist or a paid shill, but this guy's clearly a paid shill and puppet of the cool.
A vast majority of flat earthers, with very few exceptions, promoted the Gleason's map of the world, which is an azimuthal equidistant projection. This map had the North Pole at the center and pushed the south to the outer perimeter of the known world. This made Antarctica an ice wall perimeter around all the world's continents, which served to hold in all the world's oceans, as flat earthers claim water must have a container. It also extends the entire southern hemisphere into a larger and larger area, where on the globe everything south of the equator gets closer and closer together. This made being at the southern tip of South America and in Antarctica the perfect place to test flat Earth claims and also confirm the globe predictions. If they cannot provide an accurate map of the world and a working model that can account for the results of all of these final experiments collectively, that is because we do not live on a flat Earth. Maps of the globe exist because the globe exists. The entire globe model exists because the globe exists. If a flat earther tells you that there is no accurate flat Earth map and there is no working flat Earth model and that they don't make predictions, that is an implicit admission that a flat Earth does not exist, because you can map things that exist. This brings us to crossing Antarctica. Flat earthers have said for years that no one has ever crossed Antarctica. They've acknowledged that crossing Antarctica would be impossible on a flat Earth and that it would prove the globe. And the reason for this is simple. On a flat Earth, Antarctica is an ice wall that encircles the entire known world. It's not something you can cross or traverse in the traditional sense. But on the globe, Antarctica is an island continent, and you can cross from one side of an island to the other. I need to point out again that flat earthers have no idea where the South Pole is. If you ask them, they will first deny that there is even a South Pole. As insane as this is, they must do this as a geographic South Pole cannot exist on a flat Earth.
Correct on one thing, there is no South Pole. Like he says, it only exists on a globe. But don't you worry, I'll straighten this malarkey out. I'll bury the globe and the shields that defend it. I'll dig the hole deep. So you've got a few options. Go full Joe Rogan and back to the globe. Accept what is essentially the flat Earth model, minus the ice wall, backed up with logic, evidence and common sense. With my model that my expeditions are based on, we can tell people like Pastor Shield to go fuck himself. His so-called proofs that we live on a globe are no better than saying if we can circumnavigate the UK or Australia, in some way that proves that we live on a spinny ball. Or you can just carry on believing in your Antarctic ice wall fantasies that's been slaughtered and debunked. I don't expect the shill non-player character truth community to budge from their beloved ice wall. But don't expect to learn truth and reality from supposed truthers that have built their debunked theories on foundations of lies and deception. Please stop allowing these shill non-player characters and morons like these to make you look like idiots. These aren't the final experiments. My expeditions are the start of our experiments. No one's doing what my crew and I are, especially jokers like these and his moronic expedition crew. I would offer to take Pastor Shill with us, but I know 100% that I'd end up throwing him overboard. But I will leave the last words on this subject to Pastor Shill himself.
Okay. We finally get to my conclusion on the matter of lying and deception, and that is this. After carefully looking at both sides of the debate, and after taking a very deep dive into everything I could possibly find in Scripture regarding lying and deception, I have come to the conclusion that neither lying nor deception are inherently immoral.
When it comes to the Abono Monte 1587, there's so much that we could talk about. There's a few bits that I wanted to show you, and a couple of repeated questions or misconceptions that I wanted to clear up. Quite a few people have noticed that there's been alterations made to the original Monte map, maybe even parts purposely hidden. And they're right, it has. Text removed, areas completely scrubbed out, areas missing and drawn like a jigsaw piece missing from a puzzle. A star over an area where in older maps shows a magnetic mountain. It must be a conspiracy, right? Who's removed it and altered it? Was it them? To understand that, you've got to understand the history of Monty and his map. There's 3 copies of the Abono Monty 1587 map remaining to my knowledge, all in their original book form. 60 individual and removable pages that when cut out to shape and connected together, they make a 10-foot by 10-foot version of the one that you're seeing now. This one's been digitally stitched together by the David Rumsey Map Collection. This was intended by Monty to be mounted on a circular wooden and rotatable table or mounted to the wall. This chart is dated 1587, but it was actually created about 20 years prior in 1567. Monty finished this map at age 25, but there was a 20-year gap between the map's creation and its published year of 1587. And we can find physical evidence of this 20-year gap on the very map itself. This is a self-portrait of Abono Monty, looking middle-aged, as Monty was about 43 years old when he published his map in 1587. But like I said, Monty drew his map 20 years prior when he was about 25. And that's why in all 3 of his remaining maps, they're like children's lift-up books. So we have the old Monty on top, and underneath we've got young Monty. And this explains the 20-year gap from Monty creating his map and having it published. He obviously just wanted to update his image. Now, I studied Monty's entire life and career, and I've read that same story from multiple sources about 4 or 5 plus years ago. I spent hours searching the internet for anything along the lines of that story and explanation and found nothing. I even used AI to search the entire internet, nothing. But now there's a new mainstream narrative. The entire previous story has been scrapped, and now it says that Monty published his map in 1587 at age 43, the end, nothing else, end of story. So now it says that he drew and published the map in 1587. But think about it. We have the physical evidence of the double self-portraits of young and old Monty. So I asked the cult's AI a couple of questions. So if Monty drew and published his map in 1587, how do you explain the double self-portraits? An AI said Monty published his map in 1587, but 2 years later, in 1589, he basically recalled all of his maps that were in book form, that anybody had a copy, and added his new self-portrait. Imagine a book author selling their book, then demanding them all back 2 years later so they could update a photo of themselves. That's the new narrative. So I asked AI another question. Why the fuck would he do that? And after deciphering about 3 pages of ramblings off AI, it basically says that it was down to Monty's vanity, that he was just being vain. I've studied Monty's life extensively, and I've never read a bad word about him or claimed that he suffered with vanity. But the newly created mainstream story is that Monty was so vain that he drew himself 20 years younger, but then 2 years later he wasn't vain anymore, so he demanded his books back and stuck a new portrait on that was to his true likeness. A completely retarded story that was literally made up on the spot during my interaction with this AI. Anyways, to get back to my original point, who's been altering the Monty map? Is it the cult? Was it David Rumsey? Nope, it was this fucking guy here, the main man himself. Look at his cheeky wee face. Abono Monty was the one that altered the Abono Monty 1587 chart. During the 20 years between creating the map and publishing it, Monty made clear changes, including the obvious, the updated self-portrait. Monty was a boy when he drew his map, and he was a man when he published it. He wanted to portray himself as the man he'd become, not the boy he was when he created his masterpiece. I've seen a few videos struggling to identify Japan on the Monty map. Japan's position north of the Tropic of Cancer and in line with Australia. And on the modern map, Japan's position north of the Tropic of Cancer and in line with Australia. Japan is another oddity on Monty's map. Japan Asla translates to Japan Island. This is what Japan used to look like before the destruction event of the Little Ice Age. During the mid-1500s, Monty pictured Japan in its exact shape and mass to its genuine scale at the time. Just like every cartographer before him, and just like every cartographer after him. During this time frame, Japan, its surrounding countries, seas and oceans were extremely well explored, charted, with busy known trade routes transporting goods all around the world. It was essential for well-known landmasses like this to be fully charted, and its surrounding islands, major ports and coastal rivers fully detailed, before the main destruction event that reshaped this gigantic land into what's left today. This was the worst affected area during the destruction of the Little Ice Age. The majority of the volcanoes, earthquakes and tsunamis originated from this area, and we see examples of this all over this region. In my previous video, I undeniably proved that this outer ring landmass formerly known as Nova Guinea is what we now call Australia, New Zealand and surrounding islands like Fuji. And this can be proven in multiple ways, like using the Tropic of Capricorn, geographic coordinates and using the visuals from the map itself. Now, I'm not claiming that Australia used to be at this scale and has now crumbled to what's remaining today. Monty didn't even claim that the outer lands coastlines were pictured in perfect detail. It was just the edge of the known world at the time. He was mainly showing where the outer lands were and how to navigate to them. Remember? New Galicia on the mainland, to the outer continent of Galicia. Terra del Fuego on the mainland, to the outer continent of Terra del Fuego, the land of fire, aka Antarctica, and so on. But at the end of the day, do we actually even know the real shape of the landmass that we even live on? Due to our school indoctrination and deceptive maps using the Mercator projection, we think Australia looks like this. But since the Mercator projection model has been officially debunked, being totally inaccurate, distorted when picturing our world's countries, shapes and sizes, the cult soon rolled out their Gauss Pictures projection replacement. Supposedly, Google Earth uses photos stitched together to make an image of our world, but Google uses the Mercator model shapes which have been officially proven as inaccurate, which proves that what we're seeing here is a load of CGI bullshit and fakery. So now they claim that this is our world's land's new shape, size and mass. As we look at landmasses like Australia, there's a notable difference, and I doubt this replacement representation of Australia is even completely accurate. When we look at the Gleason's map or any other that copied it, Australia isn't the shape we're shown nowadays. So what's the real shape and mass of Australia? They can't seem to make their minds up, can they? They even show us these landmasses from floaty space, right? But unfortunately, when we look from space, we see the debunked Mercator model, not their new Gauss-Pictures projection model. It just shows that we can't trust anything that comes from the cult. We certainly can't trust their cartography. We need to remap this entire world. While we're on the subject of the Gleason's map, the 1943 air map is my favourite version of the Gleason's map, which, like I said, is essentially the Monty map. The 1943 version includes flight paths on its chart, which could be used for marine navigation as well. And lastly, on this Monty chapter, some people are so desperate to squeeze an ice wall onto every model, and I've heard claims that Monty pictured the ice wall on his map. As explained before, maps have imaginary lines of latitude and longitude, including the tropics. This white line of latitude indicates the 60th degree south. It's not an ice wall. If you are attempting to spread truth and educate others, please at least educate yourself before spewing out disinformation. It's really not helping. When it comes to what I call the cult, the powers that be, the government, the parasites that have enslaved you and turned your beautiful world into the hellish shit show that we're all forced to live in, the cult are not the bloodlines of the gods. They're not the Anunnaki or any of that fear-mongering bullshit. They're not aliens or demons, and they're not the Illuminati. They're not the illuminated ones. You are. Them suppressing knowledge and dumbing down the masses doesn't make them the illuminated. Their bombardment of propaganda makes you feel them and even call them the elites, making you believe they're better than you. It's all mind games, and it pains me to see how effective it is. A cult just means hidden, but I call them the cult as a sign of disrespect. To me, they're nothing but pathetic, diabolical, scared, disgraceful occultists. They're mass murderers and paedophiles, the least amongst us. The conspiracy theorist and cult propaganda wants you to believe that they've been running this world for thousands of years, and that they're too powerful to remove. The cult only took reins of this world towards the end of the last catastrophic reset, around 1800. Now, I'm not saying that these parasites' families' bloodlines weren't around pre-reset. Of course they were. We all were. We're all here because of our ancestors. Just because these families changed their names doesn't mean that we don't know who they really are. But the families running the world didn't have the worldwide power back then like they do nowadays. They were individual kingdoms and rulers. But in our timeline, these remaining families have combined forces and took over the entire world. And over the past couple of 100 years, they've worked towards their agenda of their new world order. But if we look at the facts, they've not even been running the world for that long. I don't keep relevant with the cult's pantomime, but their current invasion and takeover in Iran must be their last domino to fall, right? Our timeline has been invasion after invasion, takeover after takeover. That's what all of this has been about. A takeover of power across the entire world, their new world order. How many good men that have stood up against the cult and their new world order? To be slaughtered, demonised, and their countries that they loved and defended is taken over by the cult. To just be beaten to death in the streets and put on TV. Like I've said, after the past reset, the cult just took the advantage while the world was on its knees. And through my research, I found the cult's main motive to why they've done this to us. And it's simply because they fear us. During the last major worldwide reset, the Little Ice Age and general crisis of humanity, thousands of these wealthy families and bloodlines were slaughtered and wiped out by the common people. The once wealthy, powerful kings, nobles, lords, barons, politicians, tax collectors, merchants, and gentry alike, including their families, were massacred, executed, mobbed in the streets, beaten to death, and if their homes weren't burned to the ground, their estates and wealth were removed. Royals were executed, along with the family members and any supporters of them. Politicians being thrown out of top-storey windows. Get out, you fucker. When the masses are starving to death, it doesn't matter how much money they've got or how high their walls are. Now, the cult don't teach this next part about their beloved royals and so-called elites and their indoctrination camps, but open a search engine and ask, during the Little Ice Age and general crisis, list examples of wealthy families, royals, lords and alike, that were executed and murdered by the people. I recommend that you do this to see the extent of the written history and records of this slaughter of the cult's bloodlines. This purge happened worldwide and all during the same time periods. And here's just a few of the thousands of examples of this. King Charles I, he was executed by the state after a civil war. The king's supporters were also killed in the violence. The king's public execution followed by local attacks on royalist properties and lynchings of royalist agents. Royalists and nobles were targeted during the English Civil War. Below are a few examples in the UK of mob-type killings, lynchings, massacres or crowd attacks that targeted nobles, wealthy families, tax collectors and officials. In 1641, Protestant planters and local gentry, like bloodlines of the Parsons, Montgomery, St Ledger and Moore families, in various countries were attacked and many killed in massacres and local lynchings. Royalists, gentry and supporters were killed in local riots. Same goes in Scotland. Local attacks on landed families, lynchings and house burnings occurred on the borders and highlands. You see, at the time, the English had the intelligence to seize these parasites' estates and houses, but the Scottish were like,
burn it.
They make me proud. And it doesn't matter which country you research, they all have this same slaughter of the so-called elites during the same time frame. We nearly wiped them out. In France, nobles were attacked and some executed or killed on the streets. Germany, many noble estates and wealthy were attacked, murdered, depossessed and executed. Violence against the elites occurred during wartime breakdown. Local gentry's families sometimes expelled, attacked or removed from power. In Sweden, noble opponents and conspirators were executed after political upheavals in the 1700s. Spain and Portugal saw attacks on tax collectors and local officials. Some local elite figures were murdered. Poland, peasantry mobs massacred Polish nobles, Catholic clergy and Jewish estate managers. In Russia, rebel mobs lynched or murdered officials and nobles. And all of this is just one instance from a few countries. You've got to personally deep dive into all of these examples to truly comprehend the enormity of this worldwide purge of these parasites. Our world today is run under a plutocracy with a facade of a democracy by about a dozen of these remaining families. But before the past reset, there were thousands of these individual families and bloodlines. And this is why the cult fear us. A claim I've heard being churned out for years concerning the reset events is that the cult caused and causes these reset and depopulation events. Even before I connected the reset, when people didn't even know what the reset was or when, they were blaming it on the almighty elites. After being the first person to actually put these pieces of the reset together, I spent about 200 hours researching this reset event. And my conclusion is that the cult had nothing to do with this event that caused the past reset and Little Ice Age. There's literally nothing that I can find that even hints that they had anything to do with this event. And before anyone starts rambling on about chemtrails or HAARP or anything like that, sure, I have no doubt that they can make it rain, or cause a hurricane, or a forest fire. Sure, they can spray aluminium into the sky and make it a wee bit hazy for a day. But this world is a giant filter. The cult do not have the power to cause a pole shift or create an ice age event that would freeze an entire world for hundreds of years. And remember, the Little Ice Age nearly wiped them out too. The cult want to control you, not wipe you out. If they wanted to kill you, you'd be dead already. You're their currency, their creators, their trophies. They are moving you into their new system with digital IDs, passports, surveillance and full control, but they're not crashing the system and causing a reset and mass death event. Plus, they wouldn't dare to. Who would protect them if we turned on them again? They're going to a lot of trouble to keep you alive, indoctrinating you, stripping away what little freedoms you had. And like they say, you'll have nothing and be happy. And the masses will conform and obey, as always. They're certainly not trying to kill you. Now, with the way the world is run, with their non-player characters running on programs, in their illusion of democracy, the entire setup of this clown world, I think this is beyond your repair. There's no fixing this place. It has to run its course, or be completely destroyed and rebuilt from the foundations upwards. My type of soul isn't here to tell you what to do. We can only guide you, bring enlightenment, piece things together. I'd say humanity's best chance of taking your world back is just to protect the children. All the children, of course, but especially the children with an internal monologue, with a soul. This realm's been flooded with thousands of very powerful souls. They're here to get you out of the shit show that you failed to deal with yourself. So don't fail your children. Give them a good upbringing, homeschool them, join homeschool groups. When they excel in a certain area, encourage them. They'll soon be the adults, the innovators. They'll do what you can't. But again, I think that's another subject for another video. Right, let's go back to the beginning. If you'd like to send a crew application or join the crew platform, just send it to either the addresses on screen now. For anyone else that's sent me an application over the past few months and not heard a reply off me, I'll start adding you all to the crew platform and sending invites over the next week or two. If you sent me a message in the first month of January, early February, and didn't receive a reply from me, could you please resend it? For some reason, this first months of applicants were deleted from my inbox and even my recycle bin. I'll forward invites as they come in from now on. I wanted to end with a thank you to all the channels that have mirrored my original documentary, posted live streams and videos promoting it. Absolute legends like Dave Murphy from DMurphy25, Tommy Rogers, John 4, Dino from Canal 104+, Mark from Our Melted Reality, Subtle Infinity, New Perspective, Infinite Consciousness, Focos, Eric DeBay, Virtus and Victor, Mud Digger, Flat Earth Dude, Casey from the Vegetable Police, Ronald Layton, Luke I, Campbell from Autodidactic, Hunts, The Bear Signal, and Bruce Maguire for his 3-part live stream that he called the most important documentary of all time. Which did make me laugh, but I wouldn't agree, but it was a lovely compliment. So if you don't know any of these channels or you're not subbed to them already, please check them out, give them a sub and show them some love. Thank you for listening. Until next time, peace and love to you all.